never planned to inherit a secret. Not one like this. Not the kind that could get you killed. My grandfather was a quiet man. Lived in a crumbling stone house on the edge of a forgotten Italian village. He tended tomatoes. Smoked hand-rolled cigarettes. Went to mass every Sunday without fail. And never, ever, spoke about his past. All I knew growing up was that he had once worked in the city. The way my grandmother whispered it, you'd think she meant the moon, not Rome. The night he died, I was the only one at his bedside. The rest of the family, my parents, my uncles, were too late, stuck in traffic or just too distant to bother. He gripped my wrist with surprising strength for a dying man. Listen to me, he rasped, eyes wild with something deeper than pain. The key, the truth, the burden. It's yours now. He pressed something into my hand, a small, cold object, before slumping back into the pillows. I opened my fist. It was a key. Old. Heavy. Brass. Stamped with a symbol I didn't recognize, 2 crossed keys beneath a triple crown. I didn't understand. I didn't want to understand. But that night, as I sat alone in his kitchen, the weight of it burned in my palm. That's when I found the letter, hidden inside the cookie jar he always kept locked. Yellowed paper. Ink so faded it looked like spider webs. The letter wasn't addressed to anyone. It wasn't even written in Italian. It was in Latin. I don't speak Latin. But Google does. I spent the next 3 hours hunched over my phone, translating word by word. What I read made my blood run cold. Custos veritatis expectat. In catacumbis sub basilica, quat est ante oculos omnium sed videtur anemone. Roughly. The guardian of the truth awaits. Beneath the basilica, in the catacombs. That which stands before all eyes but is seen by none. The basilica. There are hundreds of churches in Rome. But when Italians say the basilica, there's only one they mean. St. Peter's. The heart of the Vatican. I stared at the key. At the letter. At the dusty photographs of my grandfather in his youth, smiling stiffly in a dark suit, always with the same background, the distant curve of the Vatican dome. He hadn't just worked in the city. He had worked inside the Vatican. And he had hidden something there. Something forbidden. Something that had been passed down, from guardian to guardian, for generations. And now it was mine. I should have burned the letter. Thrown the key into the river. Pretended none of it had ever happened. But I didn't. Because some part of me, some reckless, desperate part, needed to know. What truth had my grandfather died protecting? And why was it so dangerous that even now, decades later, they were still watching? My name is Madison Blake. And 3 days after my grandfather's funeral, I was on a plane to Rome, clutching a rusted brass key and a letter that felt like a curse. The flight was a blur. I kept replaying his words in my head. The truth, it's yours now. It didn't feel like a gift. It felt like a bomb. Waiting to go off the moment I got too close. Rome smelled of roasted chestnuts and whetstone. Tourists thronged every street. Selfie sticks, gelato stands, laughing children. No one looked twice at the American girl dragging her suitcase through the narrow alleys. No one saw the key hidden in the chain around my neck, tucked under my shirt. No one knew I carried a secret older than their country. I rented a tiny room near the Vatican, the kind of place that smelled like mold and regret. Perfect. I didn't want comfort. I wanted answers. The next morning, I stood in St. Peter's Square, staring up at the massive dome that had crowned my grandfather's life and maybe ended it. Tour groups buzzed around me. Priests in flowing robes. Pilgrims clutching rosaries. And somewhere under my sneakers, hidden deep beneath the marble and history, was the catacomb. The place the letter had spoken of. I moved with the crowd toward the basilica. Security was tight. Metal detectors. X-rays. The Swiss guards in their Renaissance uniforms, ridiculous and terrifying all at once. I clutched my bag, heart pounding, as I passed through. No one stopped me. Inside, it was like stepping into a dream. Gold. Light. Shadows. The voices of 1,000 prayers murmured against the stones. I moved slowly, pretending to admire the art. But my eyes were scanning for something else. An entrance. A staircase. A crack in the illusion. Hours passed. Tourists ebbed and flowed. I circled the basilica 3 times, growing more frustrated and more paranoid. Was someone following me? A woman with dark sunglasses and a trench coat had been nearby for too long. A man in a priest's collar smiled at me too warmly. Or maybe I was losing my mind. By dusk, I was ready to give up. I sat on a stone bench near the statue of St. Peter, head in my hands. That's when I noticed it. A small brass plaque near the base of the statue. It looked like every other dedication plaque. Except for the symbol. 2 crossed keys beneath a triple crown. The same as the key around my neck. I glanced around. No one seemed to notice. Hands shaking, I crouched, pretending to tie my shoe. Ran my fingers over the plaque. Found a tiny indentation. Just the right size for an old key. I hesitated. Once I turned that key, there was no going back. But I didn't come this far to stop at the doorstep. I slipped the key into the slot. It clicked softly, mechanical, ancient. The plaque shifted. A panel of stone swung inward, just an inch. Enough. I squeezed through. Found myself in a narrow, dark corridor. Stale air. Dust. Silence. And a stairwell spiraling downward into blackness. Somewhere below me, hidden from the world for generations, was the truth my grandfather had died to protect. I took a deep breath and began to descend. The stone stairs spiraled down forever. Each step creaked with centuries of weight. The air grew colder, thicker. The further I descended, the more the sounds of the basilica faded, replaced by a deep, endless silence that pressed against my ears. At the bottom, the corridor split into 2 paths. Both equally narrow. Equally dark. I chose the left, guided by nothing but instinct and the trembling flame of my flashlight. The catacombs were not part of the tourist maps. These were the forgotten bones of faith. I passed crumbling walls lined with tombs, names I couldn't read, sealed behind marble and dust. Somewhere ahead, hidden beyond the known and the safe, was what my grandfather had sworn to protect. After 20 minutes of slow, careful movement, I found a door. Old. Iron-bound. Carved with the same crossed keys symbol. I reached for the handle, then froze. Footsteps. Not mine. Soft. Deliberate. Approaching. I killed my flashlight. Pressed myself against the wall. Held my breath. A figure emerged from the darkness. Not a priest. Not a pilgrim. A man in black tactical gear, boots, gloves, a headset tucked behind one ear. He paused in front of the door, scanning the surroundings with sharp, trained eyes. And then, without hesitation, he pulled out a key identical to mine. My stomach dropped. I wasn't the only one with a key. And whoever he wasn't here to pray. He unlocked the door. Slipped inside. It creaked shut behind him. I waited, heart hammering against my ribs. Counted to 50. Then moved. Fast. The door wasn't fully latched. I slipped through, as silent as I could. Inside was a long vaulted chamber, low, suffocating. In the center, illuminated by a single flickering light, was a stone pedestal. On it, a wooden box. Ancient. sealed with heavy iron clasps. The man in black was kneeling beside it, working a lockpick into the clasps. I could hear him muttering under his breath. Latin. Something about custodes, veritas, and periculum. Guardians. Truth. Danger. I stepped back, trying to melt into the shadows. That's when my boot hit a loose stone. It clattered across the floor like a gunshot. The man spun around, flashlight blinding me. "Who's there?" he barked. I ran. Through corridors I didn't know. Past crumbling walls and open graves. Twisting, doubling back, slipping through cracks barely wide enough for my body. I could hear him chasing me. Heavy boots pounding. Breathing hard. Shouting in a language I didn't understand. I burst into a larger chamber, this one filled with dusty coffins stacked like bookshelves. No exits. No time. I ducked behind a stone sarcophagus just as the man stormed in. Flashlight beam slicing through the dark. He moved slowly. Carefully. He was trained for this. I wasn't. I held my breath as he passed. 1 second. 2. 3. I bolted. Slipped past him, so close I could smell the metallic tang of sweat on his gear, and sprinted back into the tunnels. I didn't stop running until I saw it. A faint sliver of light up ahead. An exit. Or a trap. Didn't matter. I ran toward it. As I emerged, gasping, into the cool night air, I realized something chilling. The secret my grandfather had hidden was no longer hidden. And I wasn't the only one willing to risk everything for it. The alley outside the catacombs was deserted. The Vatican dome loomed behind me, beautiful, silent, watching. Somewhere inside, men in black were already sealing the door I'd slipped through. I had minutes, maybe seconds, before they realized I was gone. I sprinted through the cobblestone alleys of Rome, heart slamming against my ribs. I didn't have a plan. I didn't have allies. I barely had shoes that could survive another block. All I had was the key. Still warm from the secret door. And the sickening realization. I wasn't just carrying it anymore. I was being hunted for it. I ducked into a narrow street lined with laundry and cracked shutters. Every shadow looked like a trap. Every footstep sounded like a gun cocking. At the corner of a small piazza, a hand grabbed my arm. I yelped and twisted, but the grip was strong. A woman. Dark hair. Green eyes. Black jacket. "You have no idea what you're carrying," she hissed. She yanked me into a doorway before I could scream. Her voice was urgent. Deadly serious. "Listen. You're not the only one with a key. You're not the first they've chased. You won't be the last they silence." I stared at her. "Who are you?" She hesitated. Then said one word. "Custodians." The custodians. The name was written in my grandfather's letter. The guardians of the truth. Those who protected the forbidden history buried beneath the Vatican. Or so I thought. The woman shoved a photo into my hands. Blurry. Grainy. An archive room. Stacks of boxes. Symbols like mine. A man, the same one who had chased me, standing in the middle. Holding something that looked like a journal? "You opened the path," she said. "They know. And they won't stop until they have you. Or your body." Sirens in the distance. Not police. Something worse. The woman glanced around, then leaned closer. "You have two choices, Madison. Give them the key. Or find the last guardian before they do." "Last guardian?" I barely whispered it. She nodded. "He knows where the truth is hidden now. But they'll kill him. And you." Before I could ask more, she shoved a piece of paper into my pocket. Coordinates. A location. Somewhere outside the city. Run, she said. And then she melted into the shadows. Like she was never there. I clutched the paper. The key. My shaking breath. The Vatican dome gleamed in the distance. And somewhere below it, ancient lies were waking up. Waiting for me. The coordinates led me outside Rome. Far from the glittering lights and endless tourist crowds. Past vineyards, abandoned villas, crumbling stone roads swallowed by time. I rented the oldest car I could find, a creaking Fiat that sounded like it was dying with every mile. My hands shook the entire drive. Not just from fear. From the weight of it. The key around my neck wasn't just metal. It was a loaded gun. And every mile brought me closer to the truth, or a bullet. The coordinates ended at a monastery. Or what was left of one. Half-collapsed walls. A bell tower leaning like a drunk. A wooden door swinging loosely in the wind. The place felt abandoned. Dead. Exactly the kind of place you'd hide a man carrying forbidden knowledge. I pushed the door open. Inside, shadows twisted across cracked stone. Candles flickered in alcoves, too fresh to be accidental. Someone was here. Waiting. I stepped carefully through the ruined nave. Toward the altar. That's where I saw him. An old man. Sitting cross-legged on the broken floor. Wearing a simple brown robe. Eyes closed. Breathing slow. Madison Blake, he said before I could speak. Not a question. A confirmation. Like he had known I'd be coming for years. I stopped a few feet away. My voice barely worked. You're the last guardian. He smiled faintly. No, he said. You are. The world tilted. I shook my head. No, I don't know anything. I didn't ask for this. You carry the key. You sought the truth. You chose. He opened his eyes. Sharp. Clear. Sad. You must decide what happens next. He pulled something from his robe. A small book. Bound in worn black leather. No title. No markings. It looked ordinary. And yet, my heart lurched just seeing it. This was it. The secret generations had died protecting. He held it out. I didn't move. What's in it? I whispered. He tilted his head. The truth. The truth about what? He smiled sadly. About who controls the faith. And why. Before I could take the book, gunshots ripped through the silence. The door exploded inward. Men in black swarmed the room. Flashlights, radios, boots slamming against stone. The old man didn't flinch. He simply placed the book on the floor between us. And closed his eyes again. Choose, he whispered. I dove for the book. Hands grabbing me. Shouting. Pain lancing through my ribs. Someone tried to yank the key from my neck. I bit down on their wrist hard enough to taste blood. Chaos. Screams. A shot cracked the air. The old man slumped sideways, blood blooming across his chest. I clutched the book to my chest. Shoved past the attackers. Ran for the side door, the one I had spotted earlier. Bullets shattered the walls around me. But I didn't stop. I couldn't. Outside, darkness swallowed me whole. I didn't know where I was going. Only that if I stopped, the truth my grandfather had died to protect would die with me. I ran until my legs gave out. Collapsed behind a crumbling wall miles from the monastery. The night pressed down heavy. Cold. Silent. Watching. I clutched the book like a relic. It smelled of dust, old leather, and something darker, forgotten promises. By the light of my dying phone screen, I cracked it open. No golden inscriptions. No shining revelations. Just handwritten pages, cramped and chaotic, as if the writer had been racing against time. Latin again. But scattered between the ancient words were names. Dates. Transactions. It wasn't a diary. It was a ledger. A record of deals made behind the marble walls of the Vatican. Kings bought. Wars blessed. Heretics created and erased. Entire bloodlines shaped, not by divine will, but by secret agreements signed under flickering candlelight. I turned page after page. Sick to my stomach. Pope after pope. Emperor after emperor. Billionaire families whose names still ruled the world. It wasn't about faith. It had never been about faith. It was about control. The last few pages were different. Newer. Modern. Corporations. Tech giants. Private armies. The same game, just new players. And the Vatican? Still the spider at the center of the web. By the time I closed the book, the sun was rising. And I understood. My grandfather hadn't died protecting a spiritual truth. He had died protecting the lie behind the throne. The machinery that moved governments, economies, destinies, all hidden behind the mask of God. I could go public. Upload the pages. Shatter 1,000 years of illusion. Or I could disappear. Hide the book. Protect what little safety I had left. A beat-up car pulled onto the dirt road. The same woman from the piazza, the custodian, stepped out. She didn't draw a weapon. She didn't smile. She just said, "Choose, Madison. Save yourself. Or save the world." I stared at the book. At my bloodied hands. At the rising sun, painting the world in gold. A color that once meant divinity to me. Now it just looked like camouflage. I slipped the book into my backpack. Stood up. Met her gaze. And whispered. The world deserves to know. I didn't know if I would live to see the fallout. I didn't know if it would change anything. But for the first time, I wasn't running. I was choosing. Because behind closed doors, the truth still breathes. And sometimes, even in a kingdom built on lies, one voice can crack the throne.